Do dinosaurs exist right now? Not did they once exist, but do they exist right this second? Your gut reaction is a pretty obvious no. The past is gone, dinosaurs are extinct, over, done. In the future, it doesn't exist yet, it's just a concept. Tomorrow isn't real, it's just something we know is looming. So it seems obvious, doesn't it, that only the present is the real thing. But here's the problem that both philosophy and modern physics start to complicate. We start to complicate this very obvious thought quite quickly. Some philosophers argue that the past and future is just as real as the present, others think the debate itself is confused, and some suggest we need to rethink what we even mean by time in the first place. In this video I'll walk through three main positions: presentism, eternalism, and a third option that tries to take both physics and our phenomenal experience of time seriously. So what exactly is presentism? Presentism is the philosophy that only the present and the things in it exist. The past did indeed exist, and the future will probably exist, but only what is happening right now is real. It's easy to see why this view feels natural and even intuitive. It matches how we talk about time. The past is over, it once happened. We once had Socrates and Alexander, but they're no longer here. The future hasn't arrived yet, we're awaiting a tomorrow. And it fits our experience of time as something that flows. Our moments arrive, linger briefly, and then disappear. Presentists often summarize their view with a simple slogan: everything that exists, exists now. But this slogan hides a serious philosophical problem. What exactly does now mean? If now just means at the present time, then the claim becomes trivial. Of course, everything that exists at the time that it exists. That doesn't really tell us anything about fundamental ontology or reality. The deeper issue is that presentism relies heavily on the idea of a privileged present, but it's remarkably difficult to say what that is without circularity or vagueness. Philosophers like Harold Noonan have pointed out that unless now is carefully defined, presentism risks collapsing into an unclear or even empty thesis based on intuition alone with no philosophical rigor, and this problem only gets worse once we consider modern physics. Now, eternalism, on the other hand, takes the opposite approach. It says that the past, present, and the future all equally exist. A common way to picture this is the block universe. Imagined reality is a four-dimensional structure, where time is just another dimension like space. Dinosaurs exist at earlier temporal locations, you exist at this current one, and future people exist at later ones. Nothing comes into or goes out of existence, it's all just simultaneously there. Philosophers are often drawn to eternalism because it fits neatly with Einstein's theory of relativity, which we'll return to shortly. It also avoids the messy task of defining a special now. On this view, the present isn't metaphysically privileged, it's just a perspective which we are aware of. As Noonan puts it, eternalism claims that there are more things than what exists presently, but this theoretical neatness comes at a cost. If all times are equally real, what happens to change? What about the sense that time passes, that we are a person who moves from time 1 to time 2? The sense that the present is somehow special and finite, not just psychologically, but existentially. Eternalism explains the universe very well, but many of us feel that it explains us rather badly, so we seem stuck between intuition and theory. But there's a deeper question we need to ask at a meta level. Is the debate even well defined? Some philosophers argue that the entire debate between presentism and eternalism is confused, or at least poorly framed. The problem lies in how loosely we use the term exists. This is where Emanuel Veben offers an important clarification. Instead of asking whether past and future things exist, he suggests that we should ask, where are things located in time? Reframed this way, the debate becomes much clearer. Presentism says everything is located at the present time, eternalism says things are located at past, present, and future time simultaneously. Now, we're no longer trading in vague slogans, we're making concrete claims about the structure of reality, but even once this debate is clarified, physics puts serious pressure on both sides. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, there is no single universal present. Different observers moving relative to one another will disagree about which events are happening at the same time. There is no observer-independent fact about what is happening now across the entire universe. This creates a major problem for presentism in particular. If there is no objective global now, then how can only present things exist? Eternalism seems to handle this qualm better. If all times are equally real, disagreement about simultaneity is just a matter of perspective. But here's the twist. Physicist and philosopher Carlo Rovelli argues that relativity doesn't actually force us into eternalism. What it really does is undermine the idea of a single cosmic present shared by everyone. And this opens the door to a third position. Before we get there, we need to address something which is a little closer to home. Why does time feel slower when you watch the clock? A subscriber, Brendan Parker 359, asked a great question. Why does time seem to slow down when you're watching the clock? Importantly, this is not a relativistic time dilation. Your attention doesn't actually warp space-time. What's happening here is about experience, about qualia. When you stare at a clock, your attention becomes hyper-focused on temporal change. Your brain generates more temporal checkpoints, and more moments are actively noticed, tracked, and encoded. This physical duration stays the same, but the density of experience actually increases. As a result, the interval feels longer. In other words, felt duration and objective duration come apart at the phenomenal level. This tells us something important. The present isn't just a location in space-time, it's something that emerges from interaction, attention, and information flow. What is present for you depends on how you are embedded in the world, and that turns out to matter a lot for how we think about time itself. So thank you to Brendan Parker 359 for the question, it really helped flesh out this video. Now let's discuss the third view we mentioned, local becoming. Ravelli proposes a view often described as a local relational becoming. The core idea is this: there is no universal present, but there are many local presents, tied to physical interactions and relations in space-time. Events don't become real all at once for the entire universe, instead they become real relative to specific interactions. What is present for me may not be present for a distant observer moving at a different speed. On this view, the universe isn't a frozen block where nothing actually happens, but it also isn't organized around a single privileged now. Crucially, this allows us to take something seriously that eternalism struggles with. Change is real, becoming is real, and our experience of time, including why it speeds up, slows down, and feels uneven, isn't some mistake. It's a local feature of how we exist in the world. So where exactly does that leave us? Presentism captures our everyday experience, but struggles with definition in physics. Eternalism is certainly coherent and elegant, but often feels alien to how time actually seems to us. Local becoming tries to respect both modern physics and the reality of change and experience of it, but the real lesson may not be about picking a correct side in the debate. It may be that the mistake was asking whether the present exists instead of asking where, how, and for whom it exists. And once we start asking those questions, time itself becomes a lot stranger and a lot more interesting than we ever expected.